Friends of mine, friends of mine, friends of mine, friends of mine.
So I don't know what to call this yet. For now, let's say welcome to the first ever episode of the Freedomcast. Or perhaps it's the Freecast. I don't plan on charging for it yet.
If you do, you'll have to change the name.
I will have to change the name from Freecast to perhaps Pay For It Cast. Papercast.
Pay the piper.
There's a piper dune. I need to be careful throughout this free cast to not pop my peas into the microphone. As you can see, if you're watching the visual, our resources are limited. My name, well, there's no need to keep any secrets. My name is Andrew McRae, in all reality. You might know me by something else, depending on at which point in my life that I met you. I am a professional wrestler. I wrestle as Freedom Wallace. I'm often accompanied by my supposed cousins, Bradford Montague and Ollie Wallace. But today, I am accompanied by my definite cousin, Mr. Patrick DeBrou. How are you doing, Patrick?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Here you are on the very first ever Freedomcast. We are going to make this up as we go. We are using a karaoke microphone amp that I found in the garage that I didn't know that we had, allowing us to plug in two microphones in a convenient fashion. Easy to travel with. Here to Orangeville. That's where we are.
That's right.
If you're watching...
God's country.
God's country. If you're watching from anywhere other than Ontario, you might not have any idea where Orangeville is, but it is in fact in Ontario, about an hour north of Toronto. Patrick wanted to move away from all the chaos and calamity of Brampton, where he was before that. So here we are. And Patrick, you may have moved to Orangeville, but you still work in Brampton. So I deal with people physically in the ring all the time. You deal with people physically in the jail. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
Can you tell us about being a jail guard in Brampton?
Yeah, well, I'm a correctional officer. We work out of Brampton, Ontario. It's a jailhouse. Just picture like a Royal Rumble every day, pretty much. You got rules and routines and whatnot, but nobody really gives a fuck about that. Let's just get to the good stuff. Do you go hands-on? Absolutely. And, things get out of control, and part of my job is to put them back in control.
Holy smokes. Just like the big boss man. Do you... Yeah,
that's right.
Or the, medium-sized boss man. So, do you have a story? Like, what's the craziest thing that pops in your head that's happened to you as a jail guard in Brampton?
Well, the other day we had they got a school down there, so they can get their education, and it was pretty wild. It was like there was a big brouhaha down at the school one day, and I remember responding there and just entering the school, and it was like entering the Royal Rumble. You just saw a melee in the hallway, guards and inmates just going at it, inmates going at other inmates, and like the only thing I remember is just getting my hands on the first guy standing and fucking dropping him.
So I was gonna ask, like, did you shine up on all the inmates? Like, did you get a good shine upon entering the Royal Rumble? So it was like, RKO to this guy, then this guy gets an RKO, this guy gets an RKO. Like, how did you put that guy in his place?
Well, it was more like, he didn't see me coming, that's definitely for sure. And it was more like a big, there's some history with me and the inmates, so it's kind of it's like when you hit the ring and you got what do you call it?
A rival?
A rival, yeah, and he's like, oh, one of those.
Like when Stone Cold Steve Austin is in the ring in 1997 in the Royal Rumble and Bret Hart's music hit.
That was pretty much what it was.
Pretty much what happened.
Well, I didn't give him a Russian leg sweep or anything like that, but he got my version of a fucking side suplex.
So you just dropped him on his head?
Yeah. I think he was in cuffs too.
Oh, man. So you're the heel, really?
Well, yeah, why not? Nobody likes the cops or jail guards. They group us all together.
So we're obviously going to use plenty of professional wrestling terminology. This show is not entirely about professional wrestling. However, there will always be a steady professional wrestling undercurrent. Obviously, myself being a professional wrestler and us growing up together, always being into pro wrestling, you are very much responsible for my involvement in pro wrestling. You're a major part of me loving pro wrestling. And as I'm sure the same goes for you, I'm a huge part of you loving pro wrestling. We were really the only ones, I can only speak for myself, but like friends that I had in school, nobody liked pro wrestling. Like until maybe I was in grade 7 and 8 in 1998, 1999. And at that point, wrestling blew up. So you had the Attitude Era and it was Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and whatnot. But prior to that, 1992, 3, 4, 5, 6, nobody's watching wrestling back then. So, it was you and I were watching wrestling at that point, though.
Oh, yeah.
How about you? Like, did you have friends growing up that were into wrestling, prior to wrestling blowing up during those sort of dark days?
Yeah, that was kind of a criteria. It was like, if you don't like wrestling, then I don't want to fucking hang out with you. Grew up with a good bunch of mates out in Brampton, Ontario before it went to shit. And, I remember very fond memories of, going over to my buddy's house and enacting wrestling matches before his mom and dad came home, hopefully, we didn't sustain too many injuries. Actually, one time we built a ring.
Yeah, tell that story. I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, so we moved to a new subdivision, and a lot of farmers' fields out there once you get past the subdivision. So we went into some farmer's cornyard and just started ripping the fucking corn right out of the ground.
My precious corn!
And me and my buddies kind of just stole some wood that was lying around at one of the houses being built. And built, a couple buddies I grew up with, they're pretty good with their hands, and we just kind of built our own wrestling ring, and we must have been, 11, 10 years old at the time. And, we had the frame built and the ring post. I remember stuffing it with garbage bags of styrofoam and, I remember nailing carpet down to the planks of wood. Didn't think the thumps would be that hard, but, and, couple, we got a few good, I think that lasted for a couple days until the farmer found it. He probably fucking lost his mind.
Cotton-Eyed Joe came around. You wrecked my corn. I remember that. We used to sit and talk on the phone through our landlines, and I can remember you telling me about you building a wrestling ring and having matches with your friends, and I was extremely jealous. Is I want to do that. I want to be there in the cornfield wrestling. And we used to wrestle all the time, and your parents and my parents, more so your parents, I think, your dad mainly would get really upset at the thumping upstairs. I can remember one instance in particular. It was, you know what? This is a bit of a sidetrack because I don't think we were even wrestling. It was the Game 7 of the NBA quarterfinals. I think it was the second round of the playoffs when the Raptors got eliminated by the 76ers.
Oh, AI had a big series.
Vince Carter threw up that final shot to try to win the game, and it obviously didn't go in.
Rimming out.
But we got so excited in that moment. There was like we
jump.
were upstairs. There was a jump and a giant thud, and I still remember to this day your dad like screaming, like, "No wrestling." There was a lot of wrestling. We broke a lot of the underlying wood on at least once. A couple of beds we broke with, like, you know, power bombing each other. Yeah. I would definitely take liberties with your younger brother, Ray.
Oh, yeah, he was like a fucking doll.
He was like a doll. I had a finishing maneuver at, like, you know, 10 years old. I know I called it the McDeather, which is such a silly name. But it was like a reverse power bomb. So I would stick your brother like face up in my crotch. And then, you know, flip him up in power bomb style and drop him straight on his face. Like in wrestling now, we would say he took a face bump, but like I just dropped him.
Yeah, I don't think he'd get up there that easy nowadays.
I wouldn't do the McDeather anymore. I wouldn't try to do it to Ray either. Ray, perhaps we'll try that one more time one day. I'll stick your face in my crotch and flip you upside down.
Yeah, and everything will be good.
It'll be fine. I'm a trained professional. You know? We are going to take a quick break. Not quite yet, but we're getting there. We're kind of making this up as we go. Obviously, there's going to be a few swears. I'm not going to be showing this to too many children. For the most part, though, I do like to be family-friendly. I do like to appeal to kids. I don't like to be vulgar.
I do.
You do, which is fine. And in this case, we are going to say what we want, how we want to say it. We're going to talk about things that we maybe otherwise wouldn't. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But back to the point of being family friendly and being a professional wrestler, it's evolved to the point where, you know, talk about building a ring in a cornfield and us wrestling each other and obviously playing with the wrestling action figures. It's progressed to a point where now...
Yeah, that's one thing. You always had the better figures.
Well, my mom spoiled me. Your dad is cheaper than my mom.
That's definitely...
That's the
But
truth.
you always found these gems. Like, you got to go on these trips, like to Scotland or to Florida, and you always came back with a fucking buttload of new wrestlers that you couldn't find here. You know what I mean?
So then we're gonna go off of that. That's how this show's gonna work. We're just gonna kind of jump from topic to topic as it comes up. So on that note, I remember specifically the figures that I found elsewhere. And speaking of the time when nobody was watching wrestling, supposedly, you know, 1992, 1993, 94, 95, it was hard to find wrestling figures, especially in Toronto, Canada.
Yeah.
So when I would go on vacation to, you know, Orlando, Florida with my parents, thank you so much for taking me all over the world, there were stores there where you could find these figures. So, and even prior to that, a trip to Scotland. So it would have been the summer of 1993 going to Scotland. We did a trip where we went to Edinburgh, Scotland. We also went to London, England, and eventually we went to Malta before coming back to Scotland and then flying back home. But in Scotland, I think it was in the department store called Harrods, which is on Princess Street. Anyway, in Edinburgh, Scotland. And I got 6 figures, Hasbro figures. I got Sid Justice, the Legion of Doom Hawk and Animal, Bret the Hitman Hart, the British Bulldog, and the Undertaker. And they're some of my most prized possessions in my Hasbro action figure collection, which I have in a display case to this day at home. And they were hard to find. And then similarly in Orlando, Florida, there was a comic book shop. It was actually in Kissimmee, Florida, a place called Old Town. And in there one year, I think it was probably 95, towards the end of Hasbro producing those action figures, I found Razor Ramon, Tatanka, Doink the Clown, and Giant Gonzalez. And Giant Gonzalez, definitely a rare Hasbro. But you had a few action figures that I never had. You had Owen Hart for a long time, long before I did, when it got to the Jakks Pacific era.
Yep.
Who else did you have that I didn't have? You had Justin Hawk Bradshaw.
Well, I had, I think my favorite wrestling figure of all time, and I think it's a favorite because we had like a tragic ending to it, was obviously my favorite tag team, the Demolition. I had Axe and Smash as Hasbro's. I mean, you had Smash and Crush, but you never had Axe.
I never had Axe. Tell the story about what happened to Axe.
So one day we went to Wasaga Beach. Our two families went to Wasaga Beach together, and we must have been, I don't even know.
We were like
6 or 7.
We were fucking like 4.
Oh, okay, even younger.
Yeah, it was like 1991, I think. So we would have been
5,
turning 5, literally really young.
So I think we went from your cottage.
You know what? I'm sorry, I can place it because Ray was a baby and Ray had eczema. So Ray, your face is in his crotch. Now you have eczema. You're a rashy baby.
Yeah.
So Ray was only a couple months old, right? So we're probably looking at like August of 91 to place it, right?
Yeah.
And those figures were produced in 90. So like this is like prime time. Anyway, we're in Wasaga Beach, August of 1991. What happens?
Well, we were at your guys' cottage. I think we were making a move back to my cottage. And in the process, we're trying to carry, rather than putting the wrestlers in a bag like a fucking normal person would do or something, we tried to carry them all with our hands. I ended up dropping Axe on the concrete, and he like burst into about, 6, 7 pieces. Head, arms, legs. It was fucking tragic.
That was literally devastating.
Yeah.
Literally devastating. I remember that. I totally remember that. All these years later, I actually recently met Axe and Smash.
Oh, yeah?
In May.
Were they wearing their
huge.
paint?
They were wearing their paint. I literally have a picture.
Was this like in a grocery store?
It was in the fucking Legion in Oshawa. But it was amazing. It was
Dirty Schwa. Shout out.
We were in Oshawa for a, might as well, Pro Wrestling Eclipse show, which is put on by a gentleman nicknamed Dr. Mask. That's the shout out I'll give him. So he brought in Demolition for a show in May. Started advertising it in November of 2017, at which point, as soon as I saw that event page get posted on Facebook, I was like, yo, like, this is for me. Like, I'm going to meet Demolition.
I gotta get in this show.
I gotta get in this
show.
show.
I'll do anything.
So when I did, and I got to meet Axe and Smash, they were both super nice. Smash was like so nice. And quick little tale, we do have the visual. If you're gonna watch this free cast on YouTube, during the point where I mentioned that I got to meet them, I will put a photo in there, or maybe I already have through the magic of computers and the internet. But Axe and Smash, so I drove to Oshawa for the show. I was with one of the other wrestlers, a buddy of mine, Rob Styles, wrestles as Smiles. I'm sure at some point he may wind up on the free cast, or maybe by then it'll be the pay cast. And we made a quick stop at the Tim Hortons in Oshawa, next to the Legion. Like, we're in like old school Oshawa on the strip. Go into the Tim Hortons. Who's the first fucking person I see sitting there? Smash of Demolition in the Tim Hortons in Oshawa.
And you can recognize him?
No paint. I know it's him. Like, I've seen him on the internet.
Because they don't look I'm assuming they don't look like they did when they were giving it to fucking Andre the Giant and Haku in WrestleMania 6.
No, they don't quite look like that. But to be perfectly honest, like for their age, like Axe is considerably older than Smash, and Axe looks great. He's 70.
Wow,
Axe,
and he's still a professional wrestler.
Well, he doesn't really wrestle. They got physical. They threw a couple punches from ringside and a couple.
He had these wicked chops.
Yeah, Mongolian chops.
There you go.
Axe threw Mongolian chops in the Legion. Yeah.
Nice.
Axe looks great, full head of hair. Smash, no hair left, but they both still look great for their age, and they're pro wrestlers for most of their life, and
they're probably in better shape than I am, and I'm 32.
There you go.
Yeah. There
you go. And you should be ready for all those belligerent youths that you have to deal with at the youth jail in Brampton.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could go on and on about Axe and Smash forever, but you know what? I think it's time that we take our first break, our first musical interlude of the day. Since our microphone amplifier, splitter, whatever you call it, it's actually called a karaoke voice canceller. I don't really want to cancel either of our voices. I don't know.
No, I like the sound of my own voice.
I would say that I love the sound of my own voice, but in reality, it makes me cringe. It's kind of embarrassing. Like when I go back, yeah, to be perfectly honest. But everybody's like that, right? Like when you first hear yourself back, you're like, oh my God, that's what I sound like. Yeah, that's like a common thing, right? I'm still not entirely over it. Even though, like, I do love being the center of attention, and I will blabber on, and I am exceptionally wordy, which I'm sure you will find out over time. But our first song of the day, I can't play too many songs due to copyright issues, but I can certainly play songs that I've had a hand in making. So since our karaoke voice canceller is running off of battery power, our first track today is a song called Battery Acid by a little group called More Digital Full Quality. This is the first ever historic episode of the Freedomcast. My name is Andrew McRae, and I am joined by my cousin, Patrick DeBrou, and we'll be back right after this track.
Girl, you better relax it, baby. Oh, yeah. Now, girl, you better relax it, baby. All right. We are easy and dark as night. Poison on my tongue. People
almost perfect. But you know what? This show is not about being perfect. It's more about just getting it out there, getting content out, getting our thoughts out, giving people a chance to get to know me, getting people a chance to get to know anybody who is here to do this with me. And just honestly not being afraid of what people might think at this point, you know? Like, I'm very much trying to get past that. Always looking for the ideal.
The shame.
The shame. Oh,
the shame.
I'm just going to deny all the shame, move beyond it. No, I don't feel shame.
No.
I don't feel shame. That was Battery Acid by MDFQ. I may or may not know who those two guys are. Give a shout out to Nigel, who may or may not hear this one day, and if he does, might be jealous of the concept. And certainly he and I will do a Freedomcast together at some point, I imagine. Because that's the cool thing to do. And you know what else is a cool thing to do?
What's that?
A cool thing to do is to attend the upcoming Junction City Wrestling Destructor Rumble, which is going to take place on Sunday, January 27th at 1:30 p.m., a classic Sunday afternoon wrestling matinee being produced by yours truly, which is truly a dream come true, inside the Junction Craft Brewery event space, which is, of course, at Junction Craft Brewing in Toronto.
I'll be there.
My cousin Patrick will be there. My cousin Bradford will be there. Perhaps my cousin Ollie Wallace will be there. Perhaps my cousin Ray will be there. Maybe even my cousin Kenny.
Oh, yeah.
My cousin Louie. Hopefully maybe my cousin Ian. My cousin Kirk Smith. Is anyone named Kirk Smith?
I don't know.
I don't know where that came from. I was going to say Kirkpatrick, but then I was like, no, that's too close to you.
Right.
So anyway. But yeah, craft breweries are something that's become very prevalent in the city of Toronto. They're popping up everywhere.
Yeah,
it's certainly a trendy thing to do. I myself am trying to, I guess straight up, trying to capitalize on the popularity of craft breweries by presenting wrestling shows along with these craft breweries. This is an idea I've had from before I started wrestling. So I started wrestling in 2013, and in that time, I was already thinking about how I wanted to put on wrestling shows in my own neighborhood and how I should probably approach the local craft brewery, Junction Craft Brewing, about putting on wrestling shows. So initially, we did 3 shows last year. That was the beginning of Junction City Wrestling, a brewery called Shacklands Brewing Company at 100 Symes Road in Toronto's Junction. It's actually a little north of the Junction. They like to call the neighborhood the Ale Yards because there's a pocket of a few breweries there. It was Shacklands Brewing Company that first gave me a chance. I call him the Wizard of the Junction, but Dave Watts, who serves up the beer in the tasting room of Shacklands, was the first guy to be like, okay, that's a great idea. Let's put on a wrestling show in the parking lot. But Shacklands is one of many breweries that have popped up. You were saying earlier, you were like, is it just me, or are there all of a sudden craft breweries everywhere?
Yeah.
What do you think? You see that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it seems like, I've been a professional beer drinker now for, 12, 13, 14 years.
Well, let's see. You're 32, so we're looking at maybe 27 years, 26 years.
26 years.
Something
what does
like
that put
right?
me at? 14?
Started right around
No,
the time you
I don't
dropped
know.
Axe on the concrete.
Oh, fuck.
I think we needed a beer after that. Yeah. We might as well say, every once in a while we are taking an occasional sip. just for my own sake, I'll say that I earned it. I was up at like the bright and early crack of dawn at 8:37 a.m. this morning before everybody else in the world.
Yeah, early bird gets the worm.
I was in the gym at 9. I did chest and triceps today. I posted to social media showing off what I did last night. I fed myself, and then I fed my ego. And then I drove out here to Orangeville to hang out with my cousin. And I did bring a beer. It's called The Ugly, brewed by Henderson Brewing and in collaboration with a brewery in Scotland called Brewdog. Henderson Brewery is on a road in Toronto called Stirling. Freedom Wallace, of course, claims to be from Stirling, Scotland. Just a whole lot of connections there. Henderson Brewing, if you for some random reason hear this one day, I might want to put a wrestling ring in your parking lot and have a Junction City wrestling show tied to your craft brewery. But yeah, as we were saying, there are craft breweries literally everywhere at this point. It's become a new hot thing.
Yeah, I mean it's a thing that I think people are capitalizing on. I think it's the hip thing to do at the moment. I think it was actually brilliant on your part to partner with a craft brewery because it's a win-win situation for both of you, right? Like you get your name out there, you get to put on a production that you enjoy doing, and to them they get to sell their beer, and they put it out there to the masses, hopefully to attract customers. It's free marketing on their part. You know what I mean? And in return, you get to use the space, and market what you like to do, your passion in wrestling. But yeah, no, they've definitely popped up. I mean, it's all this fucking beer infused this and beer infused that, which actually don't. And I was just reading the other day on stock tips and stuff, and they're, I think one of the big weed companies just signed a big deal with the brewery about beer-infused marijuana, or maybe the other way around.
Beer-infused marijuana, that would be cool.
Maybe the other way around. Maybe marijuana-infused beer.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's certainly perhaps the next trendy thing is weed. Weed's going to be cool, guys. Now this is a touche topic, I, in theory, may or may not want a job with the WWE at some point. So, talking about marijuana is definitely touche. But who are we kidding? We live in Canada. We've grown up around it. And now we are the second nation in the world to have legalized the recreational use of marijuana in private residence. And now in Ontario, anywhere that you were allowed to smoke cigarettes, which you probably shouldn't be allowed to do, you're allowed to smoke marijuana too.
That's right.
Which is crazy.
It's mind blowing. Like I said the other day, I was at the old local watering hole, and watching some good old football, and I remember stepping outside, and I just looked to the left of me or whatever, and there's about 4 or 5 different people, like they weren't together, and they're all token up, and I was like, fuck, this is, I guess, gonna be the norm. It will be the norm eventually. Society will have to accept it because it's legal. Right now, it's maybe not socially acceptable, but it's legal. You know what I mean? There's a difference.
Yeah, I haven't seen people going balls out is the phrase that comes to mind. Like, I haven't seen anybody walking down the street smoking a joint yet, which I'm sure we will.
Oh, for sure. What do you think all these people doing walking their dogs are doing?
Yeah, you know what? That's maybe not entirely true. Like, I've smelt weed walking the streets. I have, but I haven't walked past a person who is just blatantly toking.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's coming. And I'm sure also what's coming is craft marijuana. Right now the government controls who's producing it. Yeah. And really in a way, marijuana already has that sort of craft vibe to it. Like there's all these different flavors and different contents. Like you can get CBD levels, different CBD levels, different THC levels. So I think we're going to eventually see a boom, much like we've seen with craft beer, with craft marijuana. Maybe we're going to get, what would you even call it? Like the equivalent of a brewery to a small place that produces marijuana, like
The pot shop.
the pot shop, right? Because part of the new legislation is that you're allowed to grow 4 plants on your own in your own home.
That's right.
Is there going to come a time when there's going to be an allowance for businesses to grow a certain amount of weed and have, like, you know, a tasting room where it's you're allowed to consume the marijuana inside? Obviously now,
I would think so. I think eventually they'll open the doors to businesses, much like the red light district. Like so in the Netherlands, you can go to the red light district and you can go into, like, basically, like, it's the equivalent of a fucking cafe, but it's a smoke cafe, and you can order it and smoke it there, or you can get edibles like brownies and stuff, and trip balls, and trip balls right in the store. I would imagine eventually it will open the floodgates once the government sees how much revenue, just based on what they've designed now, how much revenue it'll generate, and how good it will be for small businesses to open their own shops, and then it expands to their own cafes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of money to be made in this, and don't lose sight of that, because that's really all the government cares about.
Right, and I don't think the government cares about some of the ill effects that consuming marijuana could have upon you. Now, there are, of course, many positive effects, more so in the case of CBD. Obviously, you have infants. You have infants that consume CBD, or their parents give them CBD, infants that have issues such as epilepsy.
Yep.
The CBD it reduces inflammation. So there are kids out there that take CBD and it prevents them from having seizures. So there are, we could go on and on and on and on about the benefits. We could go on and on and on and on about the ill effects. But the government ultimately just cares about making money. But I think we're going to see this progress and grow, no pun intended, into something more than it is right now. And yeah, we might wind up with, like, craft weed places,
Yeah.
Now, there's something to be said for, I can't imagine that there's going to be places where you can just go in and smoke, because inhaling the smoke is still going to be bad for you. And that's something that people need to realize.
Smoking anything is bad for you, because you're not supposed to put smoke in your lungs.
Right. The chemical reaction is not good for you. But obviously nowadays there's lots of different ways to consume the marijuana.
Yep.
You can eat it. You can vaporize it, where it just burns the marijuana to release the THC content, and it doesn't burn it. It vaporizes it, which then releases the THC content. But you don't get the same chemical reaction of it being burned and you inhaling the smoke. Anyway, we are embarking upon unknown territory, the path less taken, the unbeaten path. What's the phrase? What is that phrase? The path, the untreaded.
Well, there's
the not walked upon.
There's a path of least resistance, but that's not what we're talking
I don't
about
think
here.
that's. I think we got a lot of resistance.
That's like I'm going to take this path because nobody will challenge me.
That's
or I don't have
path
to
of least
answer
resistance.
so many questions.
Yeah.
But no, I would say we're fucking trailblazers.
Fucking trailblazers.
We're fucking trailblazers.
Straight out of Portland.
Well, they suck, but yeah.
Let's keep going on that then.
All right.
So talk about the Portland Trailblazers for a second.
I don't know anything about the Portland Trailblazers. I just know they stink. They always have stunk. And they always will stink.
Oh my gosh, I hope no one from Portland is watching that's a Trailblazers fan. I don't know any Trailblazer fans.
I'm sure everybody from Portland is a Trailblazer fan because they got nothing else to do there. I think maybe they got a soccer team.
I think Portland's supposedly beautiful.
I don't know.
I don't really know for sure either. I think I'd like to see it one day.
Yeah, sure.
Isn't it? Is it the City of Roses? Is that accurate?
Give me a wrestler that was from Oregon.
Billy Jack Haynes.
Oh, that was quick. That was the one I was thinking of.
You already had thought of Billy Jack Haynes?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why Portland sucks.
That's yeah. You fucking lost to Hercules, man.
Oh, you suck, Billy Jack Haynes.
He might see this one day.
Yeah,
he might
whatever.
see this. Billy Jack Haynes. Billy Jack Haynes.
He's your prototypical body.
He was a body.
No wrestling skill. No,
I don't know if that. I don't think that's fair.
No wrestling psychology, in-ring psychology.
Well, okay, hold on though, because
the guy's a dud. He's a body. That's why they call them bodies, because they can't fucking fight. Warlord. There's another body.
Warlord was a big body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a fucking juice pig.
How do you feel about the Barbarian? Better than you do about the Warlord?
He was a little bit more athletically gifted. I mean, I remember he used to do, he'd climb the rope and do this, I don't know if it was a headbutt or he did a shoulder block from the top rope. Maybe you know?
Yeah, I don't remember the moveset of the Barbarian much.
I mean, when he was in, what was the tag team called again?
Well,
Powers of Pain.
They were the Powers of Pain, and then he went on eventually to be teaming with Meng in the Faces of Fear. Prior to that, it was Barbarian and Haku.
At that point, he was like, he was gone. Like he was bigger in mass at that point.
They brought him back as a head shrinker. Remember that? In 1995? They teamed him with... Was it Samu or Fatu? Which of the head shrinkers left? I think Samu left.
I think it was...
Then they put Barbarian with Rikishi.
I don't know. Those are the Dark Ages.
That was the Dark Age, most certainly. That was definitely the Dark Age.
But yeah, he was good. When he was the Powers of Pain, when Demolition was feuding with them, I fucking hated Mr. Fuji.
But a classic performer. I can't slag on any pro wrestlers.
That guy's got charisma.
Even Billy Jack Haynes. I apologize for my cousin throwing you off the cliff there and saying you're just a body, you suck. It's hard to be a pro wrestler. At the time, it was a different world.
Stand by my claim, by the way.
Yeah, but the basis of that is really just the WWF run. I think Billy Jack Haynes had a somewhat successful career, high-profile wrestler, certainly in Oregon, other territories. Some more senior, wiser professional wrestling figures would be able to
speak to that,
fill me in and speak to that. Billy Jack Haynes is still around doing podcasts and shoot interviews. Perhaps we'll get him here one day in the future.
Well, you get Billy Jack Haynes in my living room after you buy your ring, and I'll kick his fucking ass. How about that?
Holy shit.
No.
The whole thing about the ring is still unknown to the world, but that might be a preview of the future.
There you go.
One day. Anyway, Billy Jack Haynes. Did you have that LJN action figure of Billy Jack Haynes? Was he part of your collection?
I did.
Yeah, see, that was one that I still don't have Billy Jack Haynes, and I've grown my LJN collection in recent years, but Billy Jack Haynes is not a part of it because he's just fucking shit. I'm kidding, Billy Jack Haynes. But you did lose to Hercules at WrestleMania 3. That was a cool story, the whole full Nelson back and forth. Yeah. You don't see that very much anymore. That's something that they could bring back. Is like
it plays to the power role. It's a test of strength. It's a my cock is bigger than yours type deal.
When you say things like my cock is bigger than yours, make sure you're saying it directly into the mic so we get a really good pickup.
maybe we blurted it out.
Maybe that was on purpose. Fuck, and then I went ahead and said it. Anyway, what else can we talk about? Talk about your LJN collection as I find our next musical interlude, because we are falling apart here on the Freecast. We're going to take another musical break, but cousin Patrick, Tell me about your favorite LJN
Oh.
big rubber 1980s action figures.
Man, I had quite the collection amassed. I traded with some friends back in the day. They had a nice collection. I don't think they realized what they were sitting on. May have gotten a pretty good deal. One of my cousins had like an unreal collection. I remember going over there, playing with guys like the Ultimate Warrior. Very, very rare figure, Ravishing Rick Rude.
He's worth a few bucks.
Yeah. So probably the favorite one I had. I was a fan of. I liked my Strike Force figures. Actually, I had Rick Martel and Tito Santana, and they. Because I also had another Tito Santana.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a white Trunks Tito and a purple Trunks Tito?
Yeah.
Okay. And you had
both.
You had both Titos?
Yeah.
Oh, I never had a Tito.
Yeah.
In fact, story for you, my cousin Ian, if you ever listen to this, I can remember as a kid, there was a time, I guess my cousin was dating somebody who had some LJNs, and he had told me, he's like, yeah, you know what? They don't play with them. They've got a Tito Santana. I'm going to get him for you. And there was a stretch of time when I was like 6 or 7 where I was like desperately waiting for...
Where's my Tito?
Where is my Tito? And I never got Tito Santana. You know, that's friggin' sad. So Ian, if you ever hear this, you let me down by not bringing me Tito Santana. But you know what's funny is at the most recent Junction City Wrestling show, one of the other wrestlers, Buck Gunderson, he has taken up selling wrestling merchandise, like action figures and whatnot, essentially mostly toys. And at the last show, he was selling these toys.
Like he buys them and resells them?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
WWE, arrest him. So Buck Gunderson was set up at Junction City Wrestling, and my mom was actually helping him sell the action figures. And my mom thought that these were all my action figures because I also had a Rubbermaid bin full of wrestling figures all pre-packaged and ready to go that I was going to try to sell, but they didn't wind up getting put out on the table because it's always a scramble at the start of the show, and we just didn't get them out there. So only Buck Gunderson's toys were out there. So Shackland's Dave came over looking at the toys, and he's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to get a few of these. Yeah, great. And I don't know what happened, but my mom was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. Just have a few. They're Andrews. And Shackland's Dave came away with like 5 or 6 wrestling figures.
I hope he took some good ones.
So he got a few like modern Jakks Pacific figures, but he got a couple of LJNs. So he got Greg the Hammer Valentine and Tito Santana. So after all these years, even though I didn't get my Tito Santana action figure from my cousin Ian, he is my cousin, as my shirt says. I'm just going to move the mic around for the visual of the camera. This is difficult. There you have it. He's my cousin shirt. If you're listening, I apologize for the pause. But finally, after all these years, you know, he's not in my possession, but there's a Tito Santana in the Shacklands tasting room.
In the vicinity.
Yeah, so he's close. He's close. I pretty much got my Tito. And you know what? Tito Santana is coming to town. I'll give them a shout out. Chinlock Wrestling doing a charity show in Kingston, Ontario, December 1st. Tyson Kidd and Vicky Guerrero will also be there. But one of the main guests is Tito Santana.
Arriba.
So you know what? That right there is how we're going to finish this segment. We're going to do a quick musical interlude. And I don't know. I don't even need to tell you what this is. I'm just going to hit play and we'll be back after this. suppose we're back. At the very least, I'm back. My cousin Patrick has disappeared from his post. It's going to take a moment to reveal our setup here. So if you're watching visually, you can see what I'm doing. If you're listening, I will do my best to explain what's happening as it happens. So I am going to move the poster for the upcoming Destructor Rumble presented by Junction City Wrestling and Junction Craft Brewing coming up on January 27th, 2019, 1:30 p.m. start time. I'm going to lift that poster up to reveal our microphone rig. My cousin's microphone is literally sticking out of an upside-down Tim Hortons multi-cup holder. You know those 4 styrofoam cup holder gimmicks that you get when you go buy more than one coffee? Yeah, we've stuck a microphone in that, and then that's being propped up by Bath & Body Works scented candle and another scented candle, just to give you an idea of how professional our setup is here, as I replace the poster for the Destructor Rumble, which is once again going to be presented by Junction City Wrestling and Junction Craft Brewing in the city of Toronto. If you are listening from outside of the city of Toronto, I can't believe it, but thank you for checking this out regardless. Hopefully as we move forward in the future, there will be Freedomcast from all over the world, and there will be Freedomcast listeners from all over the world. This may also be the only Freedomcast we ever do. So thank you for tuning into this one. And Patrick, you've returned.
Yes.
You have your headphones on.
Yep.
You have your, obviously, yeah, your mic is there set up, sticking out of the Tim Hortons cup holder.
Yeah, you saw them, my rigged up makeshift mic stand here.
Yes, you rigged that up. Rigged that up. So I was talking about like listeners from all around the world. Let's talk about some other places. So where did you most recently travel to?
Oh, I went to Jamaica, man.
Let's avoid impersonating accents because people are going to get offended out there.
Oh, well.
I guess that's...
Who doesn't get offended these days?
Yeah, right? Oh, man, that's a touchy one. But there is certainly a lot of offense out there these days. But let's just go, before we just go rag on everybody for being too soft.
Yeah.
How was Jamaica?
Oh, it was great. Went there for my honeymoon. Newly married. Been married for about a year now. Went to where we go, Ocho Rios. It's like a scene out of a fairy tale, man. A beach. You open your door. The beach is literally, you can walk there from your back patio. Everything, they paint it out to be, right? Free booze, plenty of good weather, some of the finest ganja.
Would you recommend that people go?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's worth it, man. Food's delicious. Thing I find with, like, the Caribbean is food could be hit or miss. Food's great. Culture's great. Very friendly people. I would recommend it to anybody listening and all of my friends and family, yeah.
Is weed legal in Jamaica? No, obviously not.
No.
Because there's only 2 nations in the world, Uruguay and Canada.
I did not know Uruguay was the other nation.
Uruguay was first.
Really?
Yeah. Uruguay is the only other country in the world to have
my neighbor is Uruguayan. Now I'm gonna tell her that.
Shackland's Dave's wife is Uruguayan.
I'm gonna have to tell her that. I'm gonna be like, hey, you made it legal first.
We should maybe get them together. Like, how many Uruguayans are there? There's not a lot.
Well, in Canada, no.
No.
I'm sure in Uruguay there's millions.
All right, that's our first Google of the day. What is the population of Uruguay?
All
We're going to
right.
check that out. Just bear with me here as we pull this up. I'm sure that somebody like Shacklands Dave could tell me what the population is
Off the top of his
off
head.
the top of his head. But let's take a quick look here. I can literally hear the sound of my phone receiving wireless waves, and I'm sure that you can hear that too. You hear that steady heartbeat kind of clicking?
Yeah, that's weird.
That's weird. That's the wireless waves running through our mind and possibly doing great damage that we don't know about.
Right.
It's a 14-hour flight to Uruguay.
That's bullshit.
Where else could you get in that long? You could get to Japan in that time.
How could it be 14 hours?
Well, that's what Google tells
Like,
me.
Jamaica was like 4.
Well, where is Uruguay? Let's see.
South America.
Southeastern region of South America. It borders Argentina to its west and Brazil to its north and east, with the Rio de la Plata, the River of Silver, to the south, and the Atlantic Ocean to the southeast. Aha! Uruguay is home to an estimated 3.44 million people, of whom 1.8 million live in the metropolitan area of its capital and largest city, Montevideo. How about that?
Well, there's the fun fact for the day for me.
There you go. So 3.44 million, 1.8 million in the main city, and that's Uruguay for you. I did not know that either. Didn't know that either. Where should we take this next? We're kind of making it up as we go. Like I was going to think about a topic, but then I just kind of, travel. Like, does anybody really care?
Not really.
Not really, right? I don't really
No.
know. I don't really know. How about those Leafs?
Hey, big win the other night, 5-0 against Pittsburgh.
5-0 against Pittsburgh. Doesn't mean anything, as we know, growing up just year after year, just perennially being disappointed.
Yeah. But we're used to it.
Yeah.
It's just like another.
You can feel and hear
It's
the
like-
disappointment in the way that we acknowledge
Yeah.
that. Just like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like scar. It's like scar tissue
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah. What's the most dramatic / traumatic moment for you as a Maple Leafs fan? When were you the most let down by the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Oh man, we had it against I think Carolina that year. Maybe 2002, I want to say.
Yep. It was 2002.
Yeah. Oh, I think we were up. We were up.
Just keep talking.
I think we were up 2-0 in the series, and Sundin was hurt, and he came back, and we thought, okay, here's the boost we need, and I don't think we won another game. I think we lost in 6. I think we either lost 4 straight or.
Yeah, we lost in 6.
I could be wrong, but we definitely took game 1. I know we took game 1. We were ahead. We were in the driver's seat, and we pissed it away. Jeff O'Neill killed us, and then we got him, and he did fucking not nearly what he did for Carolina for us.
Yeah, so while we're on that point, we might as well reminisce about that time. So, Toronto Maple Leafs 2002 Stanley Cup playoff run. I believe it went 7-game series with the New York Islanders.
Yeah, that was a war.
Right, and that was the series in which Sundin got hurt.
Yeah.
And I think it was Michael Pekka.
But don't worry, Darcy Tucker took care of him.
Right, but Pekka eventually became a Leaf much later on.
Yeah.
He was
done.
pretty much done by that
Yeah.
point. So Matt Sundin got hurt. Who else was on that team? Darcy Tucker, Gary Roberts, Alexander McGillney.
Roberts was playing with like 2 messed up shoulders too.
Roberts carried us through that series.
Yeah. Alan McCulley had a big series.
Alan McCauley.
Yeah.
That's right.
He was big in the next series. Like, I can't remember who we played in the second round.
Ottawa.
Oh, was it Ottawa? Yeah. So him and Roberts really took it to Ottawa.
They straight up beat Ottawa on their own, I would say.
Yeah.
And then it came to the third round.
I'm pretty sure that was the same year Alfredson hurt Tucker.
Yeah, that could be. Something I also just remembered from that year. So 2002. So that was also the year WrestleMania was in the Skydome. So Hulk Hogan had come back. And there was a night where it was in May. Monday Night Raw came back to the Air Canada Centre, and it wasn't the main event, but one of the matches that night was Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair.
Yeah,
Hulk
for the
Hogan.
title.
Yeah,
I was there.
You were there. It was
Yeah,
us
yeah.
three. Somebody else missed it.
Yeah,
It must
we
have
were
been my
like-
cousin Ian.
We were up in the nosebleeds.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
you know, underneath
Yeah.
the overhang of
Right
the
by the
300
Titan,
level.
Titantron.
Yeah, we were way up. But that night also was the night that Carolina eliminated Montreal. And Doug Gilmour was on the Canadians at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember Gilmour taking a penalty, and he slammed the penalty box door shut and smashed all the glass
Yep.
on the penalty box window. So I remember that about that year. And then I remember the night the Leafs got eliminated. They were down 3-2 in the series, I believe. Yeah, it was. They lost in 6, but they
Yeah.
went down 3-1. They won Game 5. Game 6, they scored with like no time left. And I remember this. I wasn't watching the game. I was playing a baseball game. Used to play a lot of baseball. And I was playing for a team called the Etobicoke Rangers at the time. We used to play out of a field called Connorvale in the vicinity of Kipling and Evans Avenue in Toronto. And Joey Votto played out of there. While I was playing for that team, I remember seeing Joey Votto take batting practice, and this field was like full-fledged 400 to center field, and
That must have been a sight.
he was like hitting home runs out of this diamond, which was as big as the Sky Dome, and we were like, I was 15. I don't know how how old he is, but he was probably 20 or 21 at the time. I think he's a few years older than us. Anyway, we were finishing up a game at Connorvale for the Etobicoke Rangers, and I remember hearing secondhand that the Leafs had tied it at the last second. And then I don't remember the moment of defeat because I tend to block those things out. But I remember them losing. I think we might have been in the car, my dad and I, driving back from the baseball game, and Carolina scored in overtime to eliminate the Leafs. They then went on to play Detroit, and Detroit absolutely murdered them in the finals. And Detroit won the 2002 Stanley Cup with Brendan Shanahan, who is now, of course, the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs. No, he's the president. Kyle Dubas is the general manager.
Yeah, he's the VP and president, or I don't even know. He's running the show.
He's running the show. Yeah, that's back in the day. 2002 was a good year. What years stand out for you? What are like your favorite? Do you have years that stand out? Because like I do, and that's kind of why they just popped into my head. But I'll ask you first.
Oh boy, I don't even know. They kind of like merge together as you get older. It's kind of weird. Are we talking about the Leafs still?
Not necessarily,
Oh,
but
just
if you
in
can tie
life?
it, if you can tie it to memories of something you loved to watch or do, like in that whatever year it is you're talking about, then that's one way of remembering. Yeah.
Well, I mean, 92, what was it, 92, 93 was pretty memorable because you had the Jays with, winning the back-to-backs. And then, the Leafs team was good.
They almost won.
They almost won. Fucking Gretzky, high stick, and Gilmore in Game 6 cost us.
Those fuckers.
Fucking Kerry Fraser missed the call. Blind as a bat. Too busy worrying about his hair, probably. Yeah. Those were good years, I remember,
And then things went to shit, though. Like baseball went on strike.
Yeah.
Like wrestling kind of went to shit.
Yeah.
Baseball went to shit. The Leafs started to suck.
Yeah. What was going on?
1995 had to be one of the most
That had to be like
abysmal years ever.
the non-declared depression.
Certainly, like 1995, I would say was a pop culture depression. Like, what good came out of 1995? I'm sure somebody listening is like, 1995 is my favorite year.
Yeah.
Because that's whoever likes 1995 communicates like that.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure Jordan left basketball in 1995.
Michael Jordan decided he was a fucking baseball player. No, that happened before. I actually have a Michael Jordan baseball card.
Was it?
On the visual,
I don't know.
I'll
The
pull
one,
it up.
the one year, all I know is like the year he left, the Houston Rockets, like finally, they had a great team and they finally won.
Here's some shit that comes to mind from 1995. Fucking Mabel. King Mabel won the King of the Ring tournament.
Whoa.
Mabel won the King of the Ring. The main event of WrestleMania was Bam Bam Bigelow versus Lawrence Taylor, the football player.
Oh, yeah.
Shawn Michaels and Diesel had a match, but it didn't go on last. The main event was LT versus Bam Bam Bigelow.
Yeah, because of LT.
The Blue Jays were in dead last. I remember 1995 well. So they
Yankees were sick, I think.
when the strike happened, the Jays and the Expos were potentially going to be good enough to meet in the finals of the 1994 World Series. But then baseball went on strike. And then when it came back, like I can remember, I have for whatever reason this memory of looking at the Jays roster in the newspaper and seeing names like Dwayne Ward, who was a big part of their World Series pitching staff, still being on the roster, but being like permanently injured, like never coming back. And like they were still carrying some of these names that they did win with, but at the same time, they were just going to the rebuild, you know?
Yeah, they were like dead contracts.
Rookie Carlos Delgado, Sean Green was on that team.
He turned out to be good.
Sean Green was a good
Both
baseball
those
player.
guys were good.
Who was the shortstop? Was it Alex Gonzalez? Was that his name?
Yeah. Drink milk, love, let. Remember that commercial?
No, but I think that
It
this
was-
is going to
it
be
was-
a cue for me to put that commercial into this show.
It was Carlos Delgado, Sean Green, and Alex Gonzalez, and they did a commercial, a milk commercial.
Well, they certainly had to do something at the time.
Yeah.
Doug Gilmour was a big milk commercial guy when he was in Toronto too.
Yeah.
I remember the day. I think that happened in 1995. It might have happened in 1996. But the Maple Leafs traded Doug Gilmour, to the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, for Steve Sullivan and Jason Smith.
Jason Smith, both serviceable NHL players.
Serviceable, but what the fuck are the Leafs doing? Giving away their best player again.
Then we had a couple terrible seasons, though, where they missed the playoffs. Like 95, they made it. 94, 95. So the playoffs of 1995, they lost to the Chicago Blackhawks. Ed Belfour was the goaltender for them at the time, for the Blackhawks.
Yep.
And you have a Blackhawks pint glass. There you go. And the next year, 95, 96, was that a strike year too? No, 94, 95 was the strike year, and the New Jersey Devils won the Stanley Cup, and they only played 48 games. The next year, the Leafs...
I think the Red Wings had a win in there somewhere.
The Red Wings won the 96 Cup, I think.
Yeah, they won. They had a rocking team in the 90s.
We're totally just going off the top of our head, but this is all close to true. I do remember about the...
Like I said, the years mesh together.
The years do mesh together. The 95-96 Leafs, though, I believe they fired their coach towards the end of the year.
There's a question.
I think it was...
Who was
might
the
have been
coach?
Pat Burns still. And then they brought in...
He was great.
It
Patty Burns was
wasn't...
great.
Was it Mike Murphy?
Man, he sucked.
Yeah, but
He was a lame duck from hire.
They had a coach who filled in for the end of that season, and then I think they hired a next one, but I don't remember specifically what happened. Things I do remember specifically.
Things didn't get good again until they hired Pat Quinn.
And Curtis Joseph was the goaltender.
Curtis Joseph was the goaltender. Pat Quinn was also the GM.
So 1995-96, they still made the playoffs, and they got eliminated by St. Louis. But remember, fucking Grant Fuhr was the goalie for St. Louis, and Nick Kyprios ran him in like game 1 or game 2 and injured Grant Fuhr. And the backup for St. Louis was John Casey, who had been to the Stanley Cup Finals before with the Minnesota North Stars.
Oh, yeah.
And Grant Fuhr was a Stanley Cup winning goaltender also with Edmonton, obviously.
Yeah, that's the year. What was it? Was Gretzky on the Blues then, or no?
Gretzky played for the Blues
Yeah,
that year.
I think Gretzky was there. They obviously had Brett Hull.
I don't think Gretzky was on the Blues yet. Maybe he got traded to the Blues in 96, 97.
I think he was. I think that's the year that Detroit, you see that Yzerman coming down the side with a fucking slap shot top shelf on Grant Fuhr.
I kind of just want to keep vibing off the top of my head instead of like looking it up on Google, because I feel like we're closer than we think to being accurate on most of this information. If anybody out there wants to like email me and correct me, you can do that.
Challenge us. We dare you. That means you're watching.
Come and check it out. That means you're watching, which I might be the only person that ever watches this. So please communicate with me and let me know that you saw and heard this. Another guy that was on the team, Dave Gagne. Remember Dave Gagne?
Yep.
He was on the Leafs at that point. Then we had a couple abysmal seasons, prior to getting back into the playoff race. Just a name off the top of my head that I'm going to just throw out there is Todd Warner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's poor guy.
Yeah.
That's the reaction he gets. Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Fucking did nothing.
Fucking Todd Warner. But you know what? The Leafs now, they're okay. They're doing okay. I mean, I've been let down so many times that I cannot ever again get my hopes up for...
Well, they're really going to run into contract trouble in the near future because you got to sign Marner and Matthews, and Gardner's expiring, and Nylander's not signed, and Kapanen also has to be signed, who's filling in for Nylander, who's playing quite well. So what's he going to demand? I mean, somebody's got to go. Somebody's got to take a pay cut. And,
What are they going to do?
Yeah, I mean, they got reserves. They definitely have guys in the minors. I mean, they won the Calder Cup last year. Their last 2 first-round draft picks were both defensemen who looked to be promising. So their D is getting built. They have depth at forward. It's just a matter of, you can't keep them all.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I wish the Leafs would just stop dogging us around.
Yeah, win a fucking cup already.
Yeah, my cousin says so. You better effing win a cup already.
You better stop, yeah.
Anyway, we're going to take another commercial break. Just looking at the timer there. How long we've been running for? We've been out here for about 75 minutes. There's no set length. There's no set schedule. We don't really know what we're doing. We're just kind of having fun. I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah, I'm having a great time.
So we're coming back for at least another segment, if not another 2 or 3.
Oh, jeez.
We'll find something else to talk about. We won't go more than 2 hours. I'm going to aim for the 90-minute range, but, we'll see how it goes. This is the historic first ever episode of the Freedomcast, I guess.
It's the inaugural episode.
First ever. Might be the only ever, but we'll see what happens next week.
Just makes it more rare.
That's right. I am Andrew McRae / Freedom Wallace / MC Ray / whatever the fuck you want to call me. Doesn't really matter. But I am me. And this is my cousin. My real cousin. Patrick. And we'll be right back after whatever I decide to put in here next. This is the Freedomcast. Somewhat live.
You go all nights to have yourself a ball. Sometimes you don't make it home at all. I don't mind you having yourself a real good time. But now, what you trying to do? Trying to make me lose my mind. You better stop. Yeah, dog, yeah. If you don't stop, I'm gonna put you down. Yes, put you down. I don't wanna do it, but I'll have to. Brush those tears from your eyes and try to realize that the ache in my heart is for you.
I didn't know that prior song by Jackie Wilson was going to end so quickly, but it was followed up nicely by Nat King Cole. This is one of my mom's favorite songs. I'm just going to let this rock for maybe 20 more seconds here. Let's listen to the words.
I went away, but I didn't mean to stay, and I will regret it until my dying day. Brush those tears from your eyes and try to realize that the ache in my heart is for you. Brush those tears.
Now, quite often, I wish that all those crybabies out there would brush those tears from their eyes and try to realize that what they're crying about is not worth crying over. So, my cousin and I decided in our musical interlude that we're going to walk a fine line and discuss social acceptability, whatever that may mean.
Oh.
Right. Now, I do have an example for you.
Okay.
I mean, everybody has been recently, we don't even know if it's actually true or not, but the removal of Apu from The Simpsons. Now, it's certainly questionable that you would have a white guy impersonating an Indian convenience store owner.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I kind of understand where they're coming from. The example that came to my mind...
Is that what people are offended about?
I think so. I think the issue is...
Because the voice...
I think
a white guy portraying a Indian? I thought that was acting.
Okay, so that's obviously one take you can have on it. I think the issue is that one race impersonating another is...
Offensive?
Offensive.
I
know where you stand. You likely would say that's not worth getting upset over.
No,
it's all in good fun.
It's a cartoon.
It is a cartoon. Some people would say, okay, we're perpetuating the stereotypes of marginalized groups. I can appreciate their stance. I understand where they're coming from. An example I saw recently, and these are all subjective terms, marginalization. Oh, we're marginalized because of this or that. There's certainly things that are unacceptable under certain circumstances. What do you think about this? I saw on Twitter Mick Foley's daughter, Noelle. Her Halloween costume was of the a female wrestler from Japan, Asuka.
Okay.
So Noelle Foley, super white, chose to dress as a Japanese female for Halloween. Is that acceptable?
Absolutely. It's Halloween. You can be whatever you want to be on Halloween. I thought that's like the beauty of Halloween. You have guys dressing up as women. You have, people wearing outlandish costumes. I think that's a lie. I think that's a pass. I don't think you can be offended on Halloween.
Halloween?
If you're offended by a Halloween costume, you need to check yourself into a fucking hospital.
What if it's not on Halloween?
Well, what if somebody's dressing up as a woman on everyday life? Is that where we're going?
That exists. Is that acceptable?
It is. I think people are like, certain people that condone it. I think certain cities condone it. I think certain people are weirded out by it. But that's whatever, man. That's not like, you know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about transgenders? Are we talking about cross-dressers? Like,
I don't think we're talking about either of those things.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we can.
Well, I'm just saying, I think if I see one in public, like, I'm not offended by that.
You're not gonna throw up on the street.
No, like they're just trying to be who they are.
Right. Good. So what I was gonna say was the best line for that is to each their own. Now, without, stoking the fires, do you think that a white woman dressing as a white female wrestler dressing as a Japanese female wrestler, can that be considered cultural appropriation?
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
She did eyeliner to make it seem as though her eyes were less open than they really are.
Right.
That's pretty fucking sketchy.
Which would be a stereotype of Asian people, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Halloween. I think, like I said, I think you get a pass. I mean,
So you think that's a go? So there was a nurse in the States that lost her job. The hospital fired her.
Yeah.
For dressing as Beyonce, a white woman.
Yeah.
Her Halloween costume was Beyonce.
Right.
And her boyfriend pretty much did himself up in blackface as Jay-Z.
Okay.
And the hospital fired her. Is that acceptable? Is it acceptable for them to have been in those costumes?
Well,
and was the action of the hospital firing her as a nurse an acceptable response to her choosing to dress up as these cultural icons? Really?
No, they're cultural icons. It's no different than me going as Adolf Hitler for Halloween.
I highly recommend you don't choose that as a costume.
I'm sure people, will be sensitive towards it, but it's Halloween. Like, if I go to work dressed up, first of all, for that question, if the hospital was condoning people dressing up for Halloween, like if they were the only two motherfuckers that showed up dressed up, then yeah, you're gonna get reprimanded because But if they put it out there, yeah, you can dress up because it's Halloween and kids like it and all that jazz, then no, you can't turn around and consequence them for that. It doesn't matter what they picked as their costume. Those people they could fucking turn around and sue the hospital for wrongful dismissal.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say is that I think that it is questionable for one race to impersonate another race, but the fact of the matter is that these people that are thinking along those lines are just perpetuating the division between races. Like, the whole idea is that everybody should be together as one and that we're all equals. Yeah. So why are we even considering these differences? So
my response to that would be by people shedding light on, you can't dress as Beyonce, we're gonna condemn you for that. That is perpetuating the race. If you didn't think anything of it and you're like, it's Halloween, she's dressed up as a costume, then you're not perpetuating anything.
What I don't have the answer to is why are people mad about it?
I don't even think people are mad about it. I like, what was there? Did somebody voice a concern at the hospital?
Somebody sent a photo.
Is that what's going on?
Somebody sent a photo of them in costume to the hospital, and the hospital responded by firing the nurse.
Wow. Well, I think that was a little rash.
Now, I think it's an issue when I think your dog wants in. We should probably let Xena in. I think the issue is when there's hate towards one race or another, when you're thinking along those lines of like, you're different than me and I don't like that, that's when an issue comes up. But when the difference is simply an identifier, then there's no issue. You're not dressing as another type of person. You're dressing, you are dressing as another type of person, but like race should just be used as an identifier. Anyway, my brain's not wired to like see difference between race as a negative thing, you know? This is hard to put into words, but it's like, yeah, you're Chinese and you look different than me, but that really doesn't make you different as a human or a person. No. Like I'm like friends with people from all walks of life all over the world. And for example, let's say earlier this year, I wrestled Bolo Fung. Yep. Like fucking a gazillion times. If Bolo Fung wanted to be Freedom Wallace for Halloween and Freedom Wallace wanted to be Bolo Fung for Halloween, I don't fucking see anything wrong with that. If you see something wrong with that, then maybe you should be a guest on the show and we'll talk about it. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about race because, you know, people will listen in and they're already cringing. We've probably already lost all 3 listeners that we had, but yeah. Anyway, I'm of the opinion that we need to look beyond the differences and just everybody should be able to get along. And if you want to have some fun and dress up as each other, great. I don't think we're at a point where, you know, you should be coloring yourself a different color. But long story short, was Noelle Foley wrong for dressing as Asuka for Halloween? I would say the answer, in my opinion, is no. Was it a risky move? Yes. From what I could tell, because sometimes I waste my time on social media and I just look at stuff and scroll through different posts to see what the comments are. From what I could tell, the only comments were, wow, she's so hot. Oh, that's sexy. Like, if anything, they're just like objectifying women. That's more of an issue right?
That's more offensive.
Yeah.
Than the race card.
Right?
But whatever.
I think there was one comment on the thread which was like, let's just wait for all the cultural appropriation whiners to spark up a conversation. And then somebody else was like, you're the one that mentioned it. But everybody else was like, woo, smoking, or like, woo, oh, you're so sexy. Like, that's more of an issue, I think. Like, because, okay, race is one thing, gender's another. If we're going to go on the tip of equality, like, yeah, you should be commenting on how well done the outfit is as opposed to, like, how much it turns you on. Like, just this animalistic mentality of horniness. Like, get over it. Like, oh, I want your body. Like, that's just as fucking scary as being, like, Adolf Hitler wanting to, like, destroy another race because he hates them for being different. Like, that's fucked up. That's just as bad. So I guess long story short is we got a lot of work to do as a group of people. But you know what? We're going to take a very brief break after that just to let everybody kind of decompress after healing. Healing. Yes, let's let everyone heal for
the world.
A good 30 seconds. We're going to play a track. It's the ring entrance theme.
You got any Michael Jackson?
I do, but for copyright reasons, I'm not going to go down that road.
He can't sue you. He's dead.
Well, yeah, but his estate is very much alive. So this is the ring entrance theme to a friend of mine from Kurdistan. How's that for fucking cultural difference? I didn't even know where Kurdistan was until I met this guy.
Felt like you made it up.
So this is
it's like your last name there, Curtis Smith or whatever you said.
Smith Patrick, Kirk Smith. Kirk Smith.
That's it.
Kirk Smith. Sounds like an occupation.
Kurdistan, Kirk Smith.
I'm the local town Kirk Smith. I don't know what I do as a job.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is what you hear when my friend Carew makes his way to the ring. When we come back, I think we'll have our final segment when we come back. We're going to close it up. I do have something cool to play for the finish. Before we go to break, you know what? This break is going to be, after the song, is going to be a trailer for a film. So we're going to tie this together. So Noelle Foley dressing as Asuka for Halloween. Not an issue in my mind. Could be an issue for some. But just lighten up, people. You know? Let's get along. Why can't we all just get along? Why can't we be friends? Anyway, if you're watching visually, I'm holding up a DVD copy. DVD's not dead yet. I won't let it go.
No, not yet. But everything's going up.
Still a digital versatile disc as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I'm holding up a copy of the documentary film, which I produced entirely by myself, with the help, of course, of the gentleman that the film is about. This is Ring of Dreams, a documentary film about one of my wrestling coaches, Yuki Ishikawa. He is a world-renowned wrestling master and responsible for training the former WWE Women's Champion, Asuka. And so as we go to break, we'll hear a little bit of Karu's entrance theme, and then we'll go to the trailer for the film Ring of Dreams, which is available on my video-on-demand entertainment website, located at freedomcraft.ca, where you can find all kinds of content and merchandise, as well as tickets for the upcoming Junction City Wrestling Destructor Rumble. Anyway, if I haven't already lost you by all our talk of questionable topics, then go on over to freedomcraft.ca, check out the trailer for Ring of Dreams, or actually just watch it during this break. This is the first ever historic Freedomcast. Karu's first opponent was, of course, Freedom Wallace. We'll be right back after these messages.
This is my dream, not their dream. So, yeah. My name is Toyohiko Ishikawa.
When we met Toyo, he's saying that he's going to the United States to learn the pro wrestling from the Card Gods.
This is Ishikawa's legacy, long legacy. Start with protege of Fujiwara.
Fujiwara です。よろしく。
So we established the original battle arts in Japan in the 1995.
Battle arts. When you finish a battle arts match, you finish the fight. It was real.
Now I came back to this my hometown. They said, "Hey, Toy, you still wrestle? Wow."
I would like to leave this city. This old town don't smell too pretty, and I can feel the warning signs running around my
That was the trailer for Ring of Dreams, a documentary film about legendary Japanese professional wrestler Yuki Ishikawa. In the background, you are hearing a song by Oasis, Half the World Away. And that's where I filmed the documentary. It was half the world away over in Japan.
What was that like? That's got to be...
Japan was an extremely unique experience for me. I'd never been anywhere further than... Well, I've been to Scotland. I mean, Malta was probably the most... I don't know, tropical. The furthest away
part of the world you've
yeah
been.
The most different place I've ever been was Malta prior to that, and then now it's definitely Japan. So I flew to Japan in March of 2016 along with Yuki Ishikawa, or Toy as we call him. His real name is Toyohiko. So we went there, 13-hour flight. I stayed for the most part in a traveler's hostel. So I was in a room with like 4 bunk beds and 7 other people, all but 2 nights. A couple other places that I stayed. I stayed in one of those capsule hotels where all you rent is like literally a capsule. So it's like a bed, yeah, like in a hole in the wall. That was pretty interesting.
Climb in.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. I was there for 12 days. I did get to wrestle. I was in one match in the famous Korakuen Hall in Tokyo, Japan. I was in a battle royal. There was one other relatively famous wrestler in there, but now he's in his 60s. Gran Hamada used to wrestle he had a couple WWF matches in the early 80s. They used to have a title called the Junior Heavyweight. I think it was called that. I'm going to keep going with not Googling and just trying to fire this off the top of my mind. But the champion that held that title for a while was Tatsumi Fujinami, who's still actively wrestling over there. He is also in his 60s now at this point. He runs his own promotion as well called Tradition. His son, Leona, is a professional wrestler. Both of those guys do show up in the film Ring of Dreams, which you can rent or buy at freedomcraft.ca. And it documents not only the sort of brief documentation of the life and times of Yuki Ishikawa, but it's also sort of a record of my trip over there, and it's obviously shot through my lens, so I was filming what I was seeing. So it's kind of my take on his life. Took forever to finish. Probably could have been done way sooner than it was, but I wanted it to be ideal and perfect, which is something that I've had to work on myself, is coming to terms with the fact that not everything's always going to wind up ideal. Yeah. Not everything's not going to be perfect,
Yep.
So even this today is a testament to me moving past that, where it's like, no, let's just do it. I'm going to plug in the microphones. You're going to sit down. We're going to start talking. Plug and play. And that is what we're doing. We are playing at this point. We are having fun. Do you remember the Sega Dreamcast game, Giant Graham 2000?
It's a wrestling game, no?
Yes.
Vaguely. But they came out with... Wait, you say the Sega Dreamcast,
Dreamcast.
Right? Yes. I was going to say, yes, I remember that. For some reason, I was thinking Sega Genesis. No, I do remember that. It was... the graphics were kind of shit.
Well, all the graphics at that point were kind of shit in 2000.
But yeah, I remember, basically it had wrestlers from all over the world.
Yeah, well, because they had gone to Japan. Well, there were legends in it, too. So there was, the current roster. I think it was an all-Japan game. It wasn't New Japan.
But I remember you can fight, I think... like Abdul the Butcher.
I don't know if Abdullah the Butcher was in there. If he was, I fucking completely forgot. Bruiser Brody.
I thought Abdul Butcher was there.
Maybe. We'd have to Google that,
Yeah.
but I don't really want to do that.
No.
Um,
But yeah, I do remember it.
yeah, Giant Graham. That was a good game. Who else was in there? Vader. Johnny Ace was in there, and he had like this sick finishing move. I think it was like a pop-up diamond cutter / RKO. I think he might have been the first guy using it, although we'd have to check that out.
The diamond cutter?
I'd like to know the origins of the cutter. Like that's a question I have for like the rest of the world.
I'm sure DDP would know.
I don't know if DDP would know, because who taught DDP how to do it?
That's what I'm saying.
My guess would be that William Regal taught DDP how to do it. Like, because why? I know Regal used to do like a variation on the cutter.
Oh, did he?
Like, who was the first person to do a cutter? That's research for me. I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know where was the first cutter style maneuver executed.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
That's interesting. That was one of my favorite moves to like hit your brother with. Like,
well,
I think we broke a bed with a diamond cutter at one point.
Yeah, it's easy. Anybody can hit it, and you can hit all sizes with it. Anybody can get the diamond cutter at any time.
Out of nowhere.
And there's nothing better than, driving somebody's face into the mat.
I have done that for real now, which was definitely a life accomplishment, hitting a diamond cutter in front of an audience. And to go back to the topic of social acceptability, I hit a guy with Asperger's with a diamond cutter.
Oh, boy.
I totally hit an autistic guy with a diamond cutter. Am I a bad person?
Yeah.
I also beat up another disabled person, and Frank the Tank. Shout out to my good friend, Frank the Tank, Frank Zakiel.
Just for the record, these were all shows, right?
Yes, it was a performance.
You don't go out of your way and beat up
the
special needs.
I only beat up special needs people to get a reaction out of the audience.
Oh, I'm sure you got one.
And when I say beat up, did I really beat them up? I don't know. Kayfabe.
You hit him with a diamond cutter.
I hit him with a diamond cutter. I haven't hit Frank with a diamond cutter, but I did hit Yanni, the Asperger's Dynamo, with a diamond cutter. We actually wound up on City TV, the Athlete of the Week segment. So Yanni, the Asperger's Dynamo, was the Athlete of the Week, and I was the guy getting beat up by the Asperger's Dynamo in the segment, which was actually my third time being the person getting beat up by the Athlete of the Week. I don't know.
You're the setup guy.
Yeah, huh? Like, is that an accomplishment in itself? I mean, I don't know.
Ask Jake Roberts.
What would Jake Roberts know?
Well, he was always the setup guy to Hogan.
Well, so he said in the Pick Your Poison DVD.
He was. He never held a title. He was very capable of holding one.
I was almost more like Dwayne Gill.
Well, yeah, you're not Jake Roberts. Let's get
No, I mean, I look way more like Gilbert than I do Jake Roberts. In fact, I get that sometimes. I'm not encouraging people to chant that, but
Gilbert,
especially when I used to wear straight black, I would get Gilbert.
Oh,
it's Gilbert. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's gotta cut you deep.
I think I look better than Gilbert.
I think you can fucking beat Gilbert.
I'm pretty sure if it was a shoot, Dwayne Gill, I am fucking challenging you. Freedom Wallace versus Gilbert, 1-on-1. And now that I'm a wrestling promoter myself,
at the Shacklands,
I might just spend all the money that I don't have and fly in Dwayne Gill for a 1-on-1 confrontation and prove to you and everybody else watching that I am nothing like Gilbert. I am Freedom Wallace, and Gilbert, you don't stand a chance when you step in the ring with me, because with one long slice... No, that promo only worked when we were working with Long Slice Brewery. Yeah,
that was good. I was.
You were into that?
I was in.
Yeah,
I was locked in.
You were locked in.
Yeah,
fuck, I shouldn't have stopped.
That's okay.
I should have kept going. Well, all I have to say to you, Gilbert, is that when you face me in the ring, perhaps at the Destructor Rumble on January 27th, a Sunday matinee, which is reminiscent of Maple Leaf wrestling shows back in the day, to harken back and call upon people's warm and fuzzy memories of nostalgia. that it's going to be, I can't do it. I can't, the camera doesn't even take me seriously at this point. I'm not actually going to decapitate Gilbert, but I would say that it's going to be off with your head.
I think that would sell tickets.
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
It's like, it's going to be off with your head.
You know what? Like, people may or may not show up thinking fucking Gilbert's going to be there now.
Well, fuck. It's going to cost me at least, like, what's an airfare from the fucking butt-fuck New Jersey?
Oh. What, up the turnpike?
I don't know.
That's drive himself.
He's
Gilbert.
He can drive himself. I don't know if he can drive himself.
Gilbert. Who do you think you are? We didn't get Goldberg.
Dwayne Gill. Are you
Goldberg? We fly in.
Are you still
Gilbert? You get on a fucking donkey for all I care and get the fuck up here.
Could you imagine that entrance? Gilbert rolling in on a donkey?
Yeah, with sparklers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yo.
Gilbert, I think we got you a gig.
Dwayne, if he's an active competitor, that is almost a worthwhile proposition. Is like Freedom Wallace fighting Gilbert.
There you go.
Do you think he could get me up for the jackhammer? I don't know.
Oh
like, we weigh the same. Like, I'm, I'm like one.
I don't think he can. I don't think he can hold you.
59.
I don't know if he can hold you up there.
Right.
That's fucking hard. I don't know how those guys do that.
A stalling vertical suplex is kind of silly because that would never happen in reality.
I don't really know how you do that. Like, are you when you're the guy up in the air? Are you holding on to the guy like?
Yeah. So like,
are you like, are you holding on?
I'll be straight up. Like, we call it a post. So, yeah, you basically make it so that you're
you're locking your arm into
like visually, like if you're watching me you can see what I'm doing, but if you're listening to me,
abdomen?
It depends on the move. So like if we were getting a suplex, sort of your hand is somewhat on the hip, you're locking yourself in position and you're helping the guy lift you up.
Hoist you.
If you're not helping him, it's referred to as sandbagging. So like you're like dead weight, you're like a bag of sand.
Yeah.
And actually tying back to me wrestling Bolo Fung a million times, at the most recent Junction City Wrestling show, I actually hit Bolo with an actual sandbag.
Nice.
Yeah.
No pun intended, Bolo.
No, there were lots of puns intended that day. You can check it out on
there
the
was lots of puns intended.
You can check it out on the Junction City
I hit him with everything.
Wrestling YouTube channel. He got hot at me. No pun intended, because I sprayed hot sauce in his face.
You could have used something else. It didn't have to be real hot sauce.
I do apologize. I did apologize. I will never do it again. But we were in the middle of a street fight. Okay, so this doesn't bode well for my liability insurance. But we were in a street fight, tag team street fight. And it was me and my cousin Bradford against Bolo Fung, and it's a long fucking story, but we were fighting two drunk Chinese guys, in storybook terms. And we had a hot dog guy there, Frank's. So
we had to promote Frank's.
Yeah, it was all, Anyway, so we wound up, leaving the ring, fighting our way towards the Shacklands tasting room. And in the process of fighting Bolo Fung, I ran out of ideas. I wandered over to Frank's and I grabbed the hot sauce. I don't remember the specific moment. Like,
was he really yelling and swearing in Chinese? I hope.
No, Bolo's pretty cool
fluent
about it.
Oh,
I didn't know he was hot about it until after the match. Like in the moment, he wasn't like, "Oh, my fucking eyes!" Yeah. Like, he just kept on fighting me back.
That's pretty. That's pretty professional.
Very professional of Bolo Fung. I love Bolo. Albert, I'm sorry for fucking spraying you in the face with hot sauce, okay?
His real name is Albert.
I know. You'd never expect that.
Never.
In a million years.
What's his Chinese name?
I don't know.
He's got to have one.
His last name is Tam. We got to ask him.
Yeah, that's pretty,
that's Chinese.
That's pretty common, too. I've heard of that before.
His tag team partner was Junyun, which is Chinese.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Albert, I mean, he's pretty whitewashed. Talking about cultural appropriation, this is a pretty white Chinese guy.
No, he's got to have he's got a name. It's not Albert. I'm telling you.
Are you working us, Albert? Whatever, if that's really your name.
If that is your real name.
If that is your real name, Bolo. Bolo Fung. At least with Junction City Wrestling, he wrestles as the Drunken Master, and his performance is literally masterful. Like, I'll give him that.
Does he like stumble around the ring and
Yep,
shit?
he comes out and supposedly like drinking the craft beer from Shacklands Brewing Co. gives him special power. And then on the most recent show, Jun Yun Lee, a younger upstart Chinese wrestler, he lost a match to the Ice Cream Machine, which may or may not be Buck Gunderson in disguise. And, you know, he was hanging out in the ring, kind of upset about it, like, I lost. And then Kung Fu Fighting hits over the loudspeakers. And now, talk about cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
Like, we're having fun with it. And first of all, being a drunk Chinese guy was Bolo's idea. I did not tell him, hey, man, this is what you're going to do on my show. No, he came up with it.
If we were trying to be stereotypical, we would have...
Same with...
We would have doped him up with opium, I think.
Well, that's the sound effect for me tugging on my collar.
That's the stereotype. But anyways.
Yikes. Same thing with Prince Etegwalu from Nigeria. That was Randy Bino's idea. I did not tell him to do it. Yes, it is questionable, but it's also thoroughly entertaining, and he brought it to the table. It was not my suggestion, which I don't know if that helps the situation at all, but I just want people who might be wondering about these things to take that into consideration. A lot of the cultural appropriation, or what you may think to be cultural appropriation, or these stereotypes, are being played out by those guys. It's their idea. Anyway, Jun Yun Lee lost a match to the Ice Cream Machine, and out comes Bolo Fung with some Shacklands. He actually had a flask, so he was drinking beer and God knows what in the story. And he offered a drink to Jun Yun Lee, and because he said it'll make him feel better. And Jun Yun Lee took the drink. He went after the temptation. So that's part of the storytelling.
He drank the player's potion.
He drank the player's potion, and then he wound up getting played in a street fight against Clan Freedom. Got hot sauce in the face. I'm so sorry to both of those guys. Good learning
he got
experience.
it too.
He got hot sauce too, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it burned. But they were both very professional about it and kept wrestling.
Yeah. Good on them.
That's, if you want to check that out, that footage is out there. And straight up, it's all a performance. Like, yeah, we're messing around. The hot sauce was a kind of a stupid improv moment, but at the end of the day, those guys weren't drunk, okay? I would not have professional athletes in the ring inebriated, okay?
Yeah.
But Junction City Wrestling is entirely a family-friendly show. Feel free to bring your kids out to the Junction Craft Brewery on Sunday, January 27th, 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon, a classic Sunday matinee. And Junction Craft Brewing specifically asked me the other day to make sure that the Drunken Master was on the show.
There you go.
So, as far as I know...
he promotes their craft.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just said that earlier in the earlier segment. It's a win-win situation. Like I said, it's very smart on yourself to do this promotion. It's a win-win. Like I said, it gets the craft brewery's name out there. You get a lot to hold your event, and you get to do something that you love. So it's definitely a win-win. Hopefully ball keeps rolling for you into 2019. And, it snowballs for you, hopefully,
Well, I very much appreciate that coming from my cousin, so in all sincerity. And, as I roll through my iPod here, I'm trying to find Kung Fu Fighting, but it doesn't look like I actually have it on my iPod here. But that would have been a good time to run that in the background. But we might have got dinged with a copyright infringement. So
already?
No, we didn't get... Well, no.
Oh.
This hasn't gone anywhere. It's just sitting on my Zoom. One day, Zoom is, of course, the brand of handy recorder that we're using, an H4n. Good product.
Those are the other people that need to lighten up. These fucking copywriters.
Yeah, tell me about
They
it.
need to chill the fuck out.
Fair use. Like, do I look
Yeah.
like I'm making a fucking $1 million off of this? No.
Not in the least. We're in my goddamn kitchen.
Yeah, in a nice house. I mean, you bought this house in Orangeville.
It's not
I
bad.
certainly couldn't have afforded it. As I try to put on wrestling shows, like for a living.
I'll fight at the fairgrounds.
Don't worry, Mom. I'm gonna be a millionaire.
Hey, that's the other thing. These guys, these music guys and these copyright guys, they gotta lighten up. Like, yeah, I'm pirating your music. Like, fuck off already.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
pirating your music.
You make enough. I come to your concerts, don't I? I buy your fucking t-shirts, don't I? Fuck off, Metallica.
Well, they're the
fucking started
guys.
it.
Yeah,
They got,
the whole Napster
They
era.
got Napster shut down, those cocksuckers.
Remember Napster? Man.
Yeah.
How many viruses did you catch from LimeWire? That was like a digitally transmitted disease. It's almost like having sex with music. It's like you had sex with the wrong program.
You were definitely taking a chance. Like, you were like going bareback into the virtual world. Take that in. Is that too X-rated?
I did say it was okay to be R-rated, but not X-rated. Just barebacking a computer. It's like, fucking, that's the wrong port. USB
Thunderbolt.
3.0.
Thunderbolt.
Thunderbolt. What does that have to do with anything?
I don't know. It sounded cool.
Good grief. Well, we're not quite finished because I've been trying to find a way to segue to a really sweet song that I want to close out with. And when we did come back from our most recent break, we had, I think the last break was the trailer, was it not? For the movie? Yeah. So we were talking about Japan. So I'm going to just swing back to
Do I got to go there? Like, is this one of the places, like, you got to go to?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say so. I mean, if your goal is to see as much of the world as possible.
I feel like it would just be, and it's no offense to the Japanese, but I feel like it'd be ass backwards. Like, it's just like, it is so what we're used to, like civilization. Like, they're civilized. I'm not saying that, but like, it is just a culture shock.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think anybody can attest to that. It's very, very different. One thing that immediately jumps to mind is the difference between the subway systems. So
really,
if like if the Toronto subway system is
east and west,
it's kindergarten.
Whereas it's one fucking line.
The Tokyo subway system is like your second PhD, you know, like it fucking goes all over the country.
Yeah.
You can,
and it is just like, it's like that. Like the grid is probably like
a web, unbelievable. Like you can find your way. Like obviously Google Maps helps you out. You can find your way around Japan relatively easily. But yeah, man, it is definitely a culture shock. In many ways, they're so far advanced.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's what I hear. Just hearing about you just telling me about subway structure. Like even when you go to the States, in certain states, their subway structure, like New York's subway structure, is like far beyond Toronto's. And I could just imagine Japan's is like New York on steroids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or like New York on like a whole lot of Subway ramen noodle. Which there may or may not be steroids in.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something, if you do go to Japan, you have to try ramen noodle soup from the Subway. Like you can get ramen noodle soup in the Subway. Like I love ramen noodle.
Like on the Subway or in the station?
No, you know what? Eating in public I think is questionable. Like there was one day where...
Is that a social acceptability there? You're not supposed to eat in public?
We'd have to Google that one.
Because like in North America, people eat everywhere.
Right. So like when I was over there as like total white boy from fucking Canada, one day I went and they got a lot of stuff is breaded. You know, you can go on the street. There's like, you don't even go into a restaurant. It's like just open windows you walk up to that are on the street, and they have like, or there's breaded pork or breaded shrimp and rice and whatever, and you just get a takeaway dish.
Yep.
I wandered around, like I just wanted to like sit on a bench and like eat the food, and like there was nowhere. There's no public benches, first of all. Or there, I'm sure there are, but like
not
where
in,
I was, I had a hard time.
Not in the district of Tokyo.
Tokyo's huge.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, but maybe the district you're in was like, like it's all business here, bud.
I don't know if that was like a huge faux pas, but like I literally sat down on a curb and just like ate this, and I got so many looks. I would also.
You're probably right.
Yeah,
it's probably frowned upon.
They're like, well, savage.
Yeah.
Great. I'm not going to impersonate a Japanese accent. Yeah. Although I'm so close with my coach, Toy. I think it's okay if I say things like great dishonor.
I think you got to ask him.
Hey, Toy, are you okay with me
eating in
being
public?
A fucking idiot?
Or eating in public.
Yeah.
Is that frowned upon? He'll tell you straight up. He'll be like, yeah.
Yeah, don't do that again, you goofball.
I'll disown you.
Right. Yeah. So, but it was amazing.
Like, that's what's fucked up, though. Like, eating in public, frowned upon. Ordering a geisha, which is essentially a fucking stripper, totally fine.
Is that a real thing?
Yo, they are prestigious there.
Geishas are not hookers.
They're not hookers, but, like, they're basically, you're paying for it's the same shit. You're paying for a service.
Before we go too deep, I thought a geisha was just like, all I know is what they look like. I don't know what they do.
You're paying for their time, and they pretty much do whatever you want them to do.
Sweet.
Yeah, great Scott.
Great Scott.
Yeah. So, but that's cool. That's
Jeez.
cool in Japan, apparently.
Crying out loud. Let's go back to the future. Get me back to 1985.
So you didn't get a geisha when you were in Japan?
Hell no, I didn't get a geisha.
Well, when I go to Japan, I'm getting a geisha.
Okay. Well, we better wrap things up. I'm going to tell a little story, which is going to lead into our final musical interlude of the day.
Our closing song.
When I was in Japan not getting a geisha.
Yeah.
One of the days, there were a lot of days I didn't stay in the same place as Toy. Like, I was in the traveler's hostel, and like he set me up with different places to go. We would meet up and go to the wrestling shows, and obviously there was a lot of filming that went on, but I had a lot of spare time on my own. So one of the days I went through, it's evading my mind right now what it's called, but there's an area in Tokyo where it's just like, the buildings are like, 10 stories high, and the whole face of the building is just covered in advertisements for like anime cartoons and video games, like shit you'd never see advertised in Canada or the USA.
Yeah. Apparently their advertising is like over the top there too. Like it's like right in your face.
It's another world.
It is. That would be for me offensive. But anyways,
no, honestly, like there's definitely things you could look at. You could dissect Japanese advertising. Like if there's like a scholar in school out there that wants to look at what's being like shoved in the faces of Japanese youth, like that's a whole other story,
they're hooked.
You can talk about like
shit.
Ontario making weed legal. Well, what about fucking 10-story tall fucking anime boobs on the walls of buildings downtown Tokyo?
Pokemon was a marketer's. It's a marketer's dream. Gotta catch them all.
Go get it.
Gotta catch them all. I have to have each and every one of these motherfuckers.
I must try every craft beer. I must try every type of legal marijuana.
Try them all. Try them all. Ontario government.
Send us. Just enter your credit card number right here.
Yeah.
Anyway, one day, wandering through the streets of Tokyo, I was actually looking for Japanese wrestling figures because, as we talked about, both grew up.
That would be rare.
Yeah. So, but they're not rare in Japan. They're everywhere.
Yeah, but it would be
for
rare
us.
to bring it back here.
Right.
Like, I'd be looking at it like, who the fuck is this guy?
It's Abdullah the Butcher.
Or
Giant Bubba.
some guy with a fucking mask on his face.
Some guy with a fucking mask on his face.
Yeah.
That's right. So anyway, I was rolling through downtown Tokyo, or maybe not downtown, but whatever district where all the video game shops are, and there's a lot of toy stores and whatnot.
Cool.
The name of the place is going to fucking come to me after it. But anyway, I did not find any wrestling toys. I think I may have seen like one Tiger Mask doll and whatever. It was way too many yen for me. But what I did stumble across was a market in the street, like a street market. So there were people there selling their crafts and all kinds of different stuff, old clothing, old little statues. And I came across a place that was selling vinyl records. So I started flipping through the vinyl records, found one. I found Daydream Believer on 45 by the Monkees, which I picked up for my sister Sheila and brought that back to Canada. And this particular vendor had a bin full of English records and a bin full of Japanese records. So I went through all the English records, pulled out Daydream Believer, great. And then I started going through the Japanese bin, and he stopped me and he was like, "Oh no, these are all Japanese records." And I was like, "Yeah, I know, I want to take a look." And a few records later, I came across a fucking wrestling vinyl.
Nice.
And it was all themes from the early to mid 80s from All Japan Pro Wrestling. And the vinyl is called Western Lariat. So the Lariat was the finishing move, Stan Hansen, right? And then all kinds of guys are on this vinyl cover. There's like Terry Funk, Dory Funk, Ric Flair, Stan Hansen, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And the songs on this record are fucking fantastic. Like they're all like 80s synth.
Like very nostalgic.
Very nostalgic. Very, very nostalgic.
Wow. Very cool, by the way.
Super cool. Like, it's so cool. And actually on November 28th of this month, I'm going to be the special guest DJ / guest on a program called Compiled Not Mixed. So basically I have 1 hour to play whatever I want, and I get to talk about the song. So I'm going to tell this story there too. So that's going to be broadcast live on, you can go on Facebook. It's called Control Room. So CTRL Room. And it's a little music studio that's in the Junction. The guy who runs it has actually helped me with the Junction City shows. He's been the guy on the roof filming. So shout out to him. But November 28th, I'll be on Compiled Not Mixed. I'm going to play a bunch of records, and there's going to be an underlying wrestling theme, of course, because that's what I do. But right now, to close out our show, our first ever historic Freedomcast, I'm going to play you a track from the Western Lariat album that I found. And this track is the All Japan Pro Wrestling 1980s theme song for Ricky Steamboat, who at the time was not yet Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, but we, of course, know him as Ricky the Dragon. So this is all the text on the vinyl itself is all in Japanese, but here on YouTube I see that it's by a group called Raideen. So this is Raideen's Ricky Steamboat All Japan Pro Wrestling theme. And that is going to conclude our Freedomcast today. So before I hit play, I will say, Patrick, my real cousin, in the world of professional wrestling, we would call you my shoot cousin. Mm-hmm. Thank you for being my co-host / guest / co-guest on this first ever edition. It might be the first, it might be the last, it might be the first of many, 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 and we may have you back.
I appreciate that. It was a honor and a privilege.
It was a good experience. On film, we are shaking left to right. There it is on camera if you're watching visually. Handshakes between the two of us. This has been the Freedomcast with myself, Andrew McRae / Freedom Wallace / the artist formerly known as MC Ray. And to close it out, this is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat's awesome 1980s wrestling theme. Thank you for listening.